Good afternoon and welcome to Your Money Health TV. My name is Jay Mattier.
And my name is Robert Thomas.
And we're here today to talk about some interesting questions that have to do with the Payroll Protection Program. A lot of you have heard the terms PPP and the Payroll Protection Program, but what does that really mean? And what does it mean for small business? A lot of times people that have relationships with banks that already have established companies, they know what to do. They have a personal relationship with a banker. But what about the mom and pop show or the business that has one or two employees, the consultant, the service worker, the service business? What's in it for them? So we took a look at some frequently asked questions on the SBA, and just to dig deep into this whole payroll protection program. I'm going to start with Robert. What is the definition of a small business? It seems to be skewed.
I don't know if I would use that word, but skewed is a good one. I would just say it's extremely broad, even to the fact that if you and when you hear the actual definition, you'd actually think it's not true, and you think that it was great because it requires you to have less than 500 employees and requires you to have an annual income of less than $38.5 million. And many of the small businesses that we're talking about, they fit within that realm. But as we talk later on, how that exposes a lot of people to it, there's a great gap. And most small businesses we know fit into that gap. Less than 500 and earning less annually than 38.5 based upon your industry.
Now, the reason why I said it seems skewed because there's a great percentage of small businesses that have less than 25 people that work for them. And I just think that maybe the definition should be a little more specific on what you mean. Because if I made $10 million or $38 million had a business, I wouldn't consider myself a small business. But let's go on to the next question.
That's the definition.
In order to get this, does my business have to qualify as a small business?
Let me clarify. The answer is definitely yes. But as it relates to the expansion, again, of what they've done with this particular payroll protection program, the answer is no. And what does that mean? It sounds contradictory, but they've allowed nonprofit agencies to now qualify. At one point in time, all these years, if you were not a for-profit, you couldn't qualify as a small business. But now you qualify as a small business, but nonprofits are also included. And so if you read the ruling of a 501c3, those people are now, in addition to small businesses, they can qualify also, such as a shelter, a food bank, a hospital, or university.
Okay. Are borrowers required to apply SBA affiliation rules to this loan?
That's a big yes. That one is definitely a mandatory situation. Again, going back to the number of employees, the annual income, and the industry, and the final rules of affiliation, they must comply with the SBA guidelines on that. And they are available at www.sba.government/size and affiliation.
Okay. Now, there's talk about the CARES Act, and the CARES Act excludes from the definition of payroll costs any employee compensation in excess of annual salary of $100,000. Does that exclusion apply to all employees' benefits of monetary value?
The answer is no. is basically only restricted to the cash compensation. It's not dealing with the level of management. It's not dealing with non-cash benefits such as retirement plans or what have you. It's the annual salary of any employee within the organization up to $100,000.
Okay. Now, does the payroll protection program cover paid sick leave?
Absolutely. In these days and times, again, because they designed it knowing that people would be laid off working from home, and might have to go to a hospital. This does include and covers payroll costs, included for employee vacation, parental, family, or medical leave, sick leave. All those things are included in the PPP. It
Now,
is
Robert,
covered if you got a loan.
hypothetically, like many of them, my small business is a seasonal business whose activity is typically from April to June. However, my small business, doesn't ramp up in February 2020 to, what they're talking about. Am I still eligible?
The answer is definitely yes, you are eligible with a seasonal business. They just have some guidelines for you to, in fact, follow. And if your corporation was operational February 15th of 2020, or an 8-week period between February 15th, 2019 and June 30th of 2019, you qualify.
Excellent. What if an eligible borrower contracts with a third-party payroll service?
In that case, their actual cost is not the cost of a corporation. That's considered an expense and not something that you can utilize to calculate your annual income or your employee qualification. It's an outside contractor, does not apply to your numbers to calculate the maximum loan you can secure for the PPP.
Now, this is an interesting one. I need to request a loan to support my small business operation in light of the current economic conditions. However, I pleaded guilty to a felony. Am I still eligible? Even though it was a long time ago.
Long time ago, the answer is yes. The gating number is 5 years. If you haven't been convicted of a felony or any type of indictment or criminal information charge in the last 5 years, you are eligible for PPP. And another caveat is that a person cannot be a 20% owner of the corporation and actually within the last 5 years be a part of an application that will cause you to be ineligible. Good. But if it's longer than 5 years, you're good.
Excellent, excellent. What time period should borrowers use to determine their number of employees and payroll costs to calculate their maximum loan amount?
They can use the previous 12 months or from calendar year 2019 for a seasonal business.
Now, should payments that are eligible borrower may make to an independent contractor or 1099 person or even a sole proprietor, what calculations should they use?
The answer is, can they use those costs? Again, like another one we spoke of earlier, the answer is no. They in fact, they'll be excluded from the calculation if they're, again, dealing with an independent contractor or sole proprietor.
Okay, and I've got one more here. How should a borrower account for federal taxes when determining its payroll costs for purposes of the maximum loan amount?
Yeah, what they should use is the gross basis without regards to federal taxes imposed or withheld. Just look at the gross, use that number in the calculations, not anything that the corporation or the individual would have to pay to make that calculation. They're just looking at the gross basis without consideration of the federal taxes imposed.
Now we know that the SBA has a number of programs. They've got the payroll protection program. They've got disaster relief. They've got a number of programs. But are there alternative sources to business finances and any other resources out there that small businesses might be able to get in contact with, or just some suggestions that they might not have thought about in the past?
And I'm glad you asked that question, because when you look at and when you listen to, it sounds like it's wide open. But for small mom and pops, because those numbers are so large that qualifies you as a small business, by the time you get to the banks, and the banks are determining that unless you have a relationship with them, you in fact, because it's a joint application, you can't fill this application out by yourself. You must go to a bank to submit to the SBA and the government for the PPP. And so that's where the disadvantage or limitation comes for smaller businesses, because the bigger businesses that fits in that big realm up to 500 employee plus, they're going to be at that money before you. So your question is very intricate for the communities in which we serve, in that I would look at sources like a credit union versus a larger bank. I would look at microfinance institutions, corporations or nonprofits that have CDFIs, community development financial institutions, community loan pools. Look at trying to establish a line of credit with the bank that I do have a relationship with that may not be a SBA lender. And I would look at, and this is the last result, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be creative. I would look at a business credit card advance where you can secure money. But that's the last resort, but it is a resort for funds. And these days, a new method of funding, which the experts say by 2025 is going to be a $300 million lending industry, is crowdfunding. And in crowdfunding, again, to answer your question, there's different types of crowdfunding. There's the reward basis crowdfunding, where you can go to Kickstarter, which is a internet site to see what their parameters are. Indiegogo. Then there's a donation type of crowdfunding, and you can find out more on that from GoFundMe to Kiva.org. There's peer-to-peer crowdfunding, where you go to Lending Club or Prosper. There are two different organizations that work in that peer-to-peer lending industry. Then there's equity-based, and so you can go to Angel List, Circle Up, or Our Crowd to find out what their rules and guidelines, and they're more tailored toward and dollars available for the people and how we define small business. And I would just simply say that it's a new wave. It's going to catch on. It's going to be less brick and mortars in the institutions of lending, and it's going to be more type, search, and click. And we, as an add-on, should be thinking in our communities with our churches about starting our own credit unions and CDFIs, because I would love to say, and the United States is a great place, but in the United States, it's a capitalistic world, and it's up to us to determine how we're going to take care of ourselves, and we should start thinking about creating our own lending institution.
Excellent, Robert. Good point. For those of you that need assistance, I know this can be intimidating, especially if you've never done it before, but with our experience with lenders and with the SBA and a lot of the organizations that Robert talked about, we have worked with them, we have gone through their process, we are familiar with their applications. So if you need assistance, feel free to give us a call at J. Mattier and Associates. The phone number is 704-336-9130. That's 704-336-9130. Or you can look us up at the web at www.jmacoaching.com or moneyhealthtv.com. For those of you that are in the process of or that you need assistance, feel free to give us a call. We'll help you as much as we can and help you through this process. So again, thank you from Money Health TV. And remember, your money health is the key to your wealth.
Absolutely. Good night.